It's 10:30 a.m. now, so I believe the debate has started.
We are ready to start if everyone else is.
Yeah, we're still waiting on two judges, it looks like.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not sure what happened, but the other judge and I ended up in a room that's not this one.
Cool. Looks like we have all three judges, so whenever both teams are ready, we can get things started.
Oh, we're ready to.
Yeah, sorry. Would you like brief introductions of us?
Sure, yeah.
All right. So, for this debate, me and my partner Michael will be pro first speakers, and I'm the second speaker of the Taiwan team.
I'm first speaker for Team Taiwan.
My name is Kanushi, and I'll be the first speaker for Team India, which is on the negative side of this debate.
And my name is Alissa, and I'll be the second speaker for Team India.
All right, so I believe it will be my case speech. Judges, opponents, are you ready? Okay, so my time will start on my first word. 3, 2, 1, go. We affirm the resolution. On balance in the United States, the benefits of presidential EOs outweigh the harms. Contention 1, urgency. The contemporary world is characterized by complex, rapidly evolving challenges that often demand timely governmental responses. Issues ranging from economic crisis and public health emergencies to national security threats and national disasters require immediate and decisive action. The traditional legislative process designed for deliberation and contestability can be inherently slow and cumbersome. In many instances, this deliberate pace, while valuable for ensuring broad support and careful consideration of long-term policy, may prove inadequate to meet the urgency of immediate problems. Now, as Brookings explains, half measures second blessing just-in-time legislating are the new norm. As electoral, partisan, and institutional barrier limit Congress' capacity for more than the lowest common denominator deals. The executive branch, specifically the president, has access to real-time intelligence expert advisors and a streamlined decision-making progress. This allowed the executive to respond immediately to both foreign and domestic threats. Now take the COVID-19 pandemic. While Congress debated relief packages, President Trump issued an EO to restrict air travel and mobilize critical medical resources like ventilators. In a face of an evolving health crisis, executive action filled the vacuum left by a sluggish Congress, says CDC 24. Now, historically, this has been true in other moments of crisis. Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal included over 3,000 executive orders helping to stabilize the economy and restore public confidence during the Great Depression. Now, Britannica 25 mentions that one of the executive orders, which created the Work Progress Administration, saved 8.5 million jobs. The National Library notes that by using executive orders, he established several agencies for the creation and administration of jobs for American citizens. Now, these actions weren't just fast, they were necessary. Executive orders serve as a vital short-term tool to prevent further harm, while Congress delivers long-term policy. In a world where minutes can save lives, urgency is a power only the executive can wield effectively. Now, second contention is flexibility. Throughout history, pressing social, economic, and security crises has demanded swift and decisive government action. Now, however, the legislative process is often slow, hidden by partisanship, bureaucracy, and political infighting. In such moments, waiting for Congress to act can mean allowing injustice, suffering, and chaos to persist. Now, Congress is composed of 500 members from different states, parties, and ideologies. Now, while democratic, this often results in gridlock, watered down compromises, or outright failure to pass meaningful laws. EOs, by contrast, provide a flexible, effective means of government, especially when the legislative branch is paralyzed. Now, binary termites divided party control typically limits legislative accomplishments. Over the past half century, we have seen high levels of deadlock and period divided control. Take the Emancipation Proclamation. At a time where Congress was deeply divided, Lincoln used the EO to free slaves in the Confederate States. This wasn't just symbolic, it was a turning point in American history, made possible because the executive branch could act independently. Now, Truman's desegregation of the military further illustrates the trend going national. Archive 22, when Southern Senator immediate first and filibuster, Truman moved ahead with civil rights using his executive power. Without EOs, desegregation would have happened much later in history. EOs are also a way to pilot reforms and test new ideas before Congress adopts them. They can initiate change, shift public discourse, and build momentum. Now, judge, only the pro sides empower the government to act when it matters most. Only the pros save lives during a pandemic, save the economy during the Depression, and advance freedom when Congress was unwilling. EOs are not a threat to democracy. They are a safeguard against its decline. Because urgency and flexibility save lives, protect our economy, move society forward, we are proud to affirm. Thank you.
I'm ready to start with my constructive if everyone else is. Okay. I will be abbreviating executive orders as EOs sometimes through my speech. Okay, so my time starts in 3, 2, 1. We negate the resolution. Contention 1, unlawful surveillance. Executive orders are being used to quietly expand surveillance and militarize civil agencies like a snake in the grass. This is happening without oversight, debate, or even legal checks due to the autonomous structure of EOs. This has been a growing problem over the past decades and has been empowering agencies like the ICE, DHS, and NSA, who are unelected by the citizens of America, to have control over their data. How, you may ask? The answer is Executive Order 12333, which was signed in 1981 by President Ronald Reagan. It is the foundational authority by which the NSA collects, retains, analyzes, and disseminates foreign signals intelligence information. Now, what's the problem? Reports from Wired 14 say that NSA was secretly collecting the phone call records of tens of millions of Americans. ACLU says up to 5 billion records per day, and records that U.S. telecoms were willingly handing over without a warrant. It was according to POGO, tracking people from afar into traditionally protected spaces. The CIA is collecting financial records in bulk, sweeping up private records of individuals not in any way suspected of doing wrongdoing, including Americans. Even now, over 10 years later, U.S. Senator Ron Wyden says the only governing authority is an EO known as Executive Order 12333, which has no expiration date to spur congressional review. Impacts 1. Human rights concerns. POGO says the fundamental problem with EO 12333 is that it's a virtually lawless surveillance authority. It operates absent any limits or oversight from Congress and courts, and it has morphed into a mass collection tool. This is unacceptable. Americans don't lose constitutional rights at borders or in global communication. EO 12333 enables mass surveillance that can bypass warrants and risks misuse by nefarious actors for personal or political targeting. EO 12333 impacts people worldwide and raises major human rights concerns. It weakens U.S. credibility to oppose mass surveillance abroad. 2. Free media is undermined. Human Rights Watch 14 says, in turn, journalists feel they need to adopt elaborate steps to protect sources and information. I don't want the government to force me to act like I'm a spy. I'm not a spy, I'm a journalist. Washington Post reporter Adam Goldman says. 3. Domestic surveillance loses U.S. hegemony. CSIS 23 says that in July 2023, the European Commission fined Meta $1.3 billion for transferring EU personal information, despite the possibility of U.S. government surveillance under Section 702 and EO 12333. A sense of global distrust that hurts U.S. businesses and international trade has erupted. This is bad because they are in a bilateral relationship that accounts for approximately 9.4 million jobs and 1.3 trillion in goods and services each year. Contention 2. Abuse of power. In a key decision, the Supreme Court has allowed President Donald Trump's executive order ending birthright citizenship for children of undocumented immigrants and temporary visa holders to proceed in 28 states. The U.S. Supreme Court has supported Donald Trump's attempt to limit lower court orders and have so far blocked his administration's back. The court's decision to permit the executive to violate the Constitution with respect to anyone who has not yet sued is an existential threat to the rule of law. This is not only challenging the 14th Amendment, having implications for constitutionality and democracy, but also affecting thousands of children worldwide. B. EO 11246. President Trump's executive order removes non-discrimination protections for nearly 14,000 transgender employees and federal government, and also 100,000 LGBTQ employees. Based on a survey conducted in 2023, approximately 42% of LGBTQ workers in the public sector already report experiencing employment discrimination. President Trump's executive order repeals protections from employment discrimination based on race, sex, national origin, and other bases that have been in place for over 6 decades. This shows how EOs can be abused for personal political agenda that disregards morals and the rights and well-being of LGBTQ communities. C. America has provided $8 billion in funding since 2001 to the WHO. The organization has paid for more than 1 billion children to be vaccinated through the immunization programs and was hoping to raise at least $9 billion for the next 5 years. However, on the first day of his second term, President Trump signed an executive order withdrawing the United States from the WHO. For these children, vaccination programs are a matter of life and death, says Associated Press 25. Executive orders were also a key tool used in disrupting funds by the Trump administration, and ones like the global gag rule, which restricted funding to AIDS and HIV funding programs. Now, what's the problem? The problem here is if disruptions continue, we could see an additional 15 million cases of malaria and 107,000 deaths alone, reversing 15 years of progress, and also 10 million additional cases of HIV and 3 million HIV-related deaths. And for all these reasons, we are proud to negate. Thank you. Thank you. Are you guys ready for cross? Opponents, you can have the first question. Yeah.
Okay, so the time starts on my first word, I guess. Okay, just to clarify, do you believe gridlock in Congress is a problem? Yes, no question.
Yes.
So when Congress fails to act, do you believe some form of action is better than none?
Yes, I would believe that some form of action is better than none, but this debate is about whether the harms of executive orders outweigh the benefits. So, if we are able to prove that the impacts and the harms of the executive orders outweigh the benefits of acting when Congress is gridlocked, then we still outweigh.
Okay, thank you. Would you like your question? Okay.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So you mentioned partisanship. Are you aware of the new ruling that came I think a day ago, where the US Supreme Court limited the power of judges? Technically, isn't that partisanship because now Trump can use his EOs to target specific communities and target specific political agenda?
Wait, you're mentioning that they limit the power of the judges.
Yeah, the US Supreme Court issued a ruling that limits the power of federal judges against Trump's EOs.
Okay, but isn't partisanship is a major part of what's that? Mainly Congress, because I think by partisanship we're trying to mention that
I agree that
Congress
partisanship is a major part of Congress, but then technically, isn't there also partisanship in this situation? Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
right.
Do you have a question?
Yeah. So give me a second. Okay. So do you think Truman desegregating the military by EO was wrong?
I wouldn't think it was wrong, although it did have some implications. I think it did result in some torturing or something, but I don't think it was wrong as a whole.
I think you misunderstood. I was talking about Truman desegregating the military, not like enhanced interrogation.
Sorry?
I was talking about Truman desegregating the military. Yeah.
I wouldn't think it was I wouldn't think it was wrong as a whole.
Okay, so but Congress refused to act in that situation. Was he supposed to just give up?
Well, that's an example from really in the past. It kind of doesn't account for the structure and the, I guess, political environment today in today's world. So I would say that's kind of like a cherry-picked example from the past.
We can provide more examples, but would you like a question now? I mean, there's 30
Okay.
seconds left.
Yeah. So I think in your speech you said that, one sec, sorry. In your speech, you said that waiting for Congress to act causes injustice. Technically, aren't Trump's executive orders causing more injustice than Congress?
We would like to, for that, I would like to say that, wait, give me a second. Okay, so Donald Trump is out there in the number of EOC approves. Donald Trump stand up compared to other modern presidents because the unusual high amount of EO. I think it's over time. Would you like me to? Yeah, I'll just finish.
Okay.
I'll just finish. High a number of EOs he issued during his time in office, as the Washington Post 25 says that while most recent presidents signed around 30-40 EOs per year, Trump signed more than 140 orders as of Monday, far more than any American president in the same period.
But the impacts are still present. The impacts are still present, right?
Yeah, there is impact, but it's like cherry picking. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that's it. Ethan, do you need prep?
I don't think I'll be needing any prep, but let me just set up my timer. Let me pull up my document, sorry. Alright, time will start my first word, but before I start, we'll first be attacking their contentions and then doing some preliminary defending while Weng along the way. Time will start on my first word. Let's go into abuse of power. They give Trump as examples, but my partner said in the cross, we say that Trump is not unique because Trump is an outlier in the number of executive orders that he approves. Donald Trump stands out compared to other modern presidents because of the unusually high number of executive orders he issued during his time in office. As the Washington Post 25 states, while most recent presidents signed around 30 to 40 executive orders per year, Trump signed more than 140 executive orders as of Monday, far more than any American president in the same period. Judge, even if you buy that, we also turn their arguments because they might tell you that Trump proves executive orders give presidents too much power, but we turn this by saying that Trump proves the system system works. He pushed executive power, but the courts pushed back. According to CNS 25, a federal appeals court held that Trump wrongfully redirected $2.5 billion from military construction funds to pay for a border wall, ruling his executive order unlawful. Judge, our COVID example saved millions of lives, while the opposition's disease example is only saying a couple 100,000, meaning which shows that we outweigh in terms of magnitude. Judge, furthermore, Trump's desegregation on the military did not cause torture, and they also admit that Trump's was beneficial, and Trump's example is important because it showed the beneficial effects in the civil rights movement, which completely turns their like LGBTQ example, and we also give recent examples like DACA and COVID. Now moving on to the discrimination points, we actually turn this argument, like I said, because the executive orders have actually benefited minorities. We have shown our case that it was executive orders that led to historical advances in the civil rights movement, with the Emancipation Proclamation abolishing slavery and the desegregation of the military. Now moving on to the unlawful surveillance. First, we say checks and balances. Unlawful surveillance and sort of the abuse of power. We rebut this because no link, because of checks and balances. The executive authority is not an absolute power, and there can still be checks imposed on it. For example, when Trump tries to seize steel mills with executive order, steel mill owners sued, and the Supreme Court ruled the executive order is unconstitutional, says for instance Woman 25. Because the checks and balances are being implemented, it means that it's beneficial for all sides of America because the Congress and the judicial branch can always overturn it. Now we return the executive order 12333 because it's a legally bounded intelligence tool. It's not a license for illegal surveillance. It includes attorney general oversight, congressional review, civil liberty protections, and public transparency, making a lawful and accountable framework for intelligence. They say that executive order 12333 enables mass surveillance, but they're ignoring its legal constraints. It requires AG approved procedures, and it limits and it limits collection on U.S. persons, mandates congressional cooperation, embeds private safeguards, and is audited to report quickly. Now the laboratory argument means that the benefits stay because the opponent talks about the abuse of power, but we already presented the laboratory argument, which far outweighs because Congress is a laboratory and executive orders are experiments. Executive orders are reversible, so that executive orders can get easily reversed, as we previously mentioned, while the good executive orders that benefit all sides stay. Now, let's go into some preliminary defending. So they might say that Congress is fast. Yes, Congress may be able to implement solutions in the long term, but executive orders are still much faster in the short term. We need to issue a lockdown to temporarily save the economy in order for Congress's relief plans to work. And like the COVID example, it first took Trump's executive order for Congress's relief plans to work because it took over 2 months for Congress to actually act their thing. Now, they also could make a non-unique argument about how civil rights will have advanced anyways. Whilst that might be true, it would have taken much longer and a lot more bloodshed. We prolonged the unjust suffering of millions if executive orders didn't exist. The Congress was simply too divided to advance civil rights because of the Southern senators. And they might also say urgency doesn't mean quality / long-term benefit. However, we say that executive orders are not meant for complex quality or long-term benefits, at least not directly, because they set the framework for future legislative reforms while solving the most dire and immediate problem. During COVID, Trump was able to quickly lock down and travel bans to get the pandemic under control, while Congress took time to turn long-term relief, according to CDC 24. Now, because of all these reasons, we urge a draft ballot. Sorry, I went about 10 seconds over.
We'll be taking running prep. Okay, starting now. Thank you. Okay, that was 35 seconds of prep time.
Okay, so my time will begin on my first word, but before that, a quick off-time roadmap. I'll be defending our case and rebutting to that point. Okay, my time starts in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so first of all, they mention urgency, saying that Congress is slow, but Congress has mechanisms that are able to act fast. And additionally, in the example of COVID-19, Trump did not act quickly when it came to COVID-19. First of all, Congress passed an order before Trump did, before Trump passed an executive order. Also, most of the important work during COVID-19 was handled by state governors. Executive orders are a tool used by governors in case law in essence create law without the legislature's involvement. Okay, then they mentioned 8.5 million jobs in that FDR the during the Depression, FDR used executive orders to stabilize. Judge, even if you take this into account, we still outweigh, as the executive order 12.333 was 9.4 million jobs on the line, which is more than the 8.5 million. Okay, then the Emancipation Proclamation. Executive orders have been used as a tool for discrimination, including the on Feb 19th, 1942, shortly after the bombing of Pearl Harbor by Japanese forces, President Roosevelt signed an executive order with the intention of preventing espionage on the American shores. Then Roosevelt executive order forcibly removed Americans of Japanese ancestry from their homes. The executive order affected the lives of about 120,000 people, a majority of whom were American citizens. Others insisted that homosexuals were simply morally unfit for government service. In 1953, President Eisenhower cemented decades of anti-LGBTQ discrimination with Executive Order 10,450, which identified sexual perversion as a code word for homosexuality, is a valid reason for rejecting it. An application of firing a federal government worker. This ban wasn't fully lifted until 2017 with President Obama's executive order. President Trump signed a new executive order on Monday after his first action, temporarily barring refugees from travel from specific majority Muslim countries faced a slew of criticism and lawsuits. The transgender military service ban was instituted by President Trump through an executive order signed and goes further than the ban in his first term. President Trump is using executive orders to deny the existence of trans people. Okay, for Trump, they say that Trump is an outlier, but he's not, but if you change your perspective, our case is not focusing on an outlier, but showing you how 3 executive orders out of thousands more can cause so much harm, and because how unchecked they are and risky they are. They try to rebut our 3 examples by giving other examples of how EOs have been reversed. But the problem here is that birthright citizenships, the WHO and LGBTQ workers are literally being confirmed. They talk about LGBTQ is done with Truman's segregation of military, but first of all, that makes no sense. They try to say that Executive Order 12.333 can still have protections, but the problem is it still collects information, and they try to rebut, saying that transparency is that simply not. They say that Trump's EOs show the system works, but they completely ignore how the Supreme Court is literally limiting judges' power, so his harmful EOs can be passed, so the system does not work. In After the Supreme Court's ruling yesterday was the US Supreme Court limits federal judges' power to block Trump's order. This means that executive orders are gaining dangerous power and can be used to deepen partisanship and advance harmful political and agenda, as Supreme Court is targeting specific federal judges. So now Trump's EO on no birthright citizenship is partially passed. So the argument is turned, which they agree to and cross. Okay. Additionally, we still outweigh the harms over benefits, as we affect over 100,000 LGBTQ workers, 15 million malaria cases, 10 million HIV cases, and 3 million HIV deaths, which we have no response to. We also outweigh the 8.4 million jobs saved, as EU can raise 9.4 million jobs through EU and USA relations. Therefore, Judge, we urge you to vote for con. Okay, it's time for cross.
Yep. So, all right. So since I spoke first, may I take the first question? Okay. So you mentioned about how like the executive orders are unchecked, but how you said that the executive orders are unchecked, but we've literally just talked about checks and balances. So you argue that executive orders violate checks and balances, but would you agree that the Constitution permits executive orders as part of executive's Article 2 powers?
Sorry, what was your last part of the question? Your voice was breaking on my.
Would you agree that the Constitution permits executive order as part of executive order's powers?
Okay, so it's 1 second. So it's going a part of it is going against the Constitution as well. It's going against the First Amendment of the Constitution.
Could you give an example of
yeah,
how
just
it's
give me a
going
second.
against the Constitution?
It's
Even well, how when we stated examples
it
in
hurts the
history.
First Amendment protections. Okay, so the US's okay. 1 second. Okay, so the wave of executive orders issued in the first 100 president includes more than 20 orders that threaten the First Amendment rights of law firms, universities, political enemies, scientists, museums, and libraries and broadcasters.
Wait, could you repeat that? I couldn't really catch that.
So the wave of executive orders issued during the president's first, President Trump's first 100 days in the office includes more than 20 orders threatening the First Amendment rights of law firms, universities, political enemies, scientists, museums, libraries, and broadcasters. The executive orders have been challenged in 30 lawsuits and counting, many in the many successfully in the early stages.
All right, could you paste that
Yeah,
the
I'll paste after
card
class.
inside the chat at the end of cross? And also, but doesn't that just show that Trump is an outlier because his first 100 days already had more than 30 executive orders?
No, so like we've mentioned, this shows how much unilateral power. It shows that how much harm one president can do using with just like we mentioned in our case, 3 executive orders out of the thousands that he's passed have done so much harm. The multiple more have caused so much harm. So just changing. Yeah. Can I have a question?
Yeah, you can definitely have a question.
Okay, so y'all say that 8.4 million jobs would be saved, but we mentioned 8.5 million jobs would be saved, but we mentioned that 9.4 million jobs would be like cost if
All right, so
yeah.
So we say, well, we tell you that we outweigh because of the lives saved. You guys may provide more jobs, but we provide you guys outweigh us in jobs by a few 100,000, but we outweigh you guys in terms of lives saved by millions. So that's kind of our
Actually
response.
we have over 15 million malaria cases, 10 million HIV cases, and 3 million HIV deaths on our side.
All right, well, I believe it's crosses over.
Additionally, okay, yeah.
Unless my timer is.
Wait, do you have a source that you save millions of lives? Please could I have your source in that?
Yeah, definitely. I'll
Thank
paste
you.
it in.
I'm pasting the link in chat. Just give me a second. Okay, I've sent the link in chat. And do you all want the exact card or?
Could I have the exact card, please? Well, I'm going to find my card as well.
Yeah, just give me a sec.
I'm sorry. Can you guys send a card over, like on the malaria and whatever that one?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
I can send you the card and the link that I got it from, if that works.
Thank you.
No problem. Are you guys sending the or are you guys taking?
Yeah, we're taking. I think.
Okay. So should I start your prep timer?
Yeah, I already started.
Okay.
Okay, I think I spent around like 25 seconds of prep. I'll just type that in. Okay, so my speech will start at my first word. But before I start, I will be giving the off-time roadmap. First of all, I will be frontlining against the opposition's arguments and pointing out some specific problems and defending our case. And I will weigh along the way. Okay, so my time starts on first. First word, 3, 2, 1. Judge, first of all, I would like to point out the framework and wait. This is a cost-benefit analysis. Which side create more good than harm? I already refuted the claim that Congress can act. Fact of my constructive Congress is slow, divided, and often gridlocked. Now, EOs don't replace laws. They fill the gaps when laws take too long. And Judge, their harm don't outweigh the benefits because only we can provide civil rights advance and a lot of lives saved. They did mention malaria one, but I will talk about that later. Now, frontline response to the main arguments on abuse of power already refuted and rebuttal. Executive orders not unchecked. They are reviewed by court and Congress. Trump tried to abuse EOs, but 96% of deregulation efforts failed in courts, according to Higgins in 2019. That proves the system actually works. Now, plus EOs are reversible. Bad ones are undone. Good ones stick. Now, on racism, Japanese internment, we show EOs have constantly helped minorities with like the Emancipation Proclamation, military desegregation, and like internment that's not unique. Congress and the Supreme Court agreed, meaning it wasn't just the president blamed the system, not just EOs. Now on surveillance, they claim mass surveillance, but EO 12333 is legal constraint, requires attorney general approval under congressional oversight. We can send the con and enforced with civil liberty protections subject to public and innocent report. Now EO 12333 isn't a loophole. It's how we provide privacy while saying secure. Don't let fear-based framing distort legal reality. Now on health harms, which are malaria and similar deaths, we outweigh. During COVID, executive orders save lives immediately. Lockdown, air travel bans, ventilators, million protected per CDC claim. Now, their arguments is speculative. Ours has happened in recent time and is proven. Without EOs, the US would have lost far more lives to slow government response. Think how many people can die within 2 months without any response from the government. Now, defending our case, executive orders act fast while Congress debates. We talk about that. And Congress is slow, partisan, and divided. Binary 10 says divided control kills policy. Lincoln used the EO to free slaves. And these are historical breakthroughs Congress cannot deliver. And lastly, their harms are hypothetical and reversible. Ours are proven in recent times. Yes, some of our examples are from a long time ago, but with Trump, the COVID-19, and more recent response, we show that ours fit the time frame. Now, they save a few hundred from speculated risk. We save millions from pandemic, uplift millions with job and brilliant, just as when Congress failed. Only the pro-less government act when it matters most. So that's why we are proud to affirm. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll be taking running prep
Wait,
starting.
I'm very sorry to interrupt, but I'm just gonna paste in like for the card I gave you. I'm just gonna paste in like the more like exact. So it's like, yeah.
Oh, is that your like card? Like your impact?
That's more of like a more specific one, and that source also shows how the government was slow and all that. I could paste in the actual card if you would like.
Yes, please.
Okay. Also for, all right, yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My prep time starts now. Okay, that was 1 minute and 20 seconds. So in total, we've used 1 minute 55, I think. Yeah. Okay, so if everyone's ready, I can start with the small off-time roadmap. Okay, so first I'll start with direct defense to our case and like showing you our impacts. Then I'll go over their case and what they have like standing. And then if time permits, I will be doing a bit of weighing. Okay, so my time starts in 3, 2, 1. Okay, Judge. So firstly, let's go over their response to our first contention, which is EO 12333. They say that EO 12333 has legal constraints and that it's transparent, etc. As my partner already said, that's not true because US Senator Ron Wyden is literally unsure about how much information it collects. It collects up to 5 billion records per day. This can endanger free journalism, which is a fundamental right. It can endanger human rights because it's invading privacy. And by the way, these US telecoms handed it over without a warrant. So it just shows that it is not as happy as the pro makes it out to be. Then going over to our second contention, they try to rebut it by saying that Donald Trump is an outlier. Judge, even if you do take that Donald Trump is an outlier, think of it this way. One president, Donald Trump, showed how executive orders can and are being abused. Since EOs are passed so quickly without oversight, one precedent judge could do so much harm with just 3 of them out of thousands, endangering the rights and job opportunities of 100,000 and LGBTQ people, endangering 15 million cases of malaria and 10 million additional cases of HIV, and 3 million HIV-related deaths, which is more than the 1 million that they saved with COVID-19, which is not true, and I'll get to that later. Now, we have absolutely no response to our second contention, except for the fact that it's an outlier. But if you change your perspective, it shows how one president can abuse executive orders so much. Now, let's go over their case. Urgency. As we've already mentioned, with their own example of COVID-19, Congress actually released action before Trump's executive order, so that loses their link to the lives that they saved, and also that executive orders are fast and better than Congress. They talk about how they saved 8.5 million jobs in the Great Depression. Judge, we've already told you that. Take that into impact. Even if you do, we still have a greater impact because 9.4 million jobs are being risked if the EU and US's partnership gets tainted. Now they talk about they try to defend checks and balances, but we literally give you an example of how birthright citizenship, the executive order, is challenging the 14th Amendment, and also how the US Supreme Court ruling is an existential threat to the rule of law, as said by the Guardian, and also said in our constructive. We are literally showing you how these EOs are passing the checks and balances that exist in the USA. So therefore, it's not constitutional. They linked their millions of lives to COVID, but as I've already said before, Congress literally responded to COVID before Trump did, and we don't have any response to that. They gave a source saying that it says that Trump responded before it did. It just says that the Trump administration responded. It doesn't say anything about Congress, so don't take that into account. They talk about partisanship. We already turned that in rebuttal. We already turned it by showing how the US Supreme Court's ruling is advancing partisanship with EOs and is allowing Trump to abuse it. So, Judge, what do we outweigh on? We outweigh on short term because up to 5 billion records are being collected by the NSA without a warrant every day. We outweigh on long term as EO 12333 is a virtually lawless authority, and 15 million malaria cases, 10 million HIV cases, and 3 million HIV deaths are being affected. We outweigh on magnitude because Meta fined 1.3 billion for data transfers, risking US surveillance, and we also outweigh on probability as surveillance abuse under EO 12333 is still unchecked and funds are still being cut. Also, please drop Emancipation Proclamation because they haven't extended it. Thank you. Sorry, I think I went 10 seconds over. Are you guys ready for Grand Cross?
Yep.
Would you guys like the first question?
Let me pull up my documents. Oh, you guys can have the first question.
Oh, okay.
Unless my partner has a question.
Yeah, in fact, I do have a question.
Oh.
So is like both like the 9.4 million jobs and like the malaria deaths speculative?
They are on track to happening right now because, as we mentioned in our first,
So they didn't happen yet.
no, they haven't happened yet, but we have probability that they will happen, and we have a link which you guys haven't rebutted to yet, so it still stands.
The link, do you mean the card I just sent you? you sent me.
No, like the link to the impact, like why
Do
the
we have
impact.
that? Do we have that? Do we have that?
Oh no, it's not like an actual link, just
Like,
like
could you wait? What was it? Like, could you
Oh,
state
I
it?
misunderstood. Like,
oh no problem.
meant by
Could you
like
state it? What was it? Like the
Oh no, it's not an actual link. It's just like the reason why the impact will happen. It has not been refuted, so therefore it stands. Can we have a question?
what we
yeah, of course.
Thank you. So you mentioned how like it's Trump's executive orders are showing that courts are pushing back, but as we've already mentioned in like numerous speeches, the courts are actually limiting Supreme Court judges like power. So exactly are the courts pushing back?
So we gave, like I said in the rebuttal, we've given examples. Like no, like I said like I said in my turn on the Trump argument, the court is and has been pushing back. For example, like
No,
the
but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the Supreme Court judge ruling where the power is being limited. The court is retreating. It's allowing Trump to pass these harmful executive orders.
yeah.
Well,
So
but they have already like struck down 96%, so
yeah.
that's still a lot. Whether their like powers are actually being limited.
Okay, even if you have struck out 96%, these three executive orders that we mentioned, birthright citizenship, the health one with the WHO, and also the one about the LGBTQ workers, those still stand, right? They still stand, and they're still doing so much harm.
Well, they
Those
don't.
three
But
orders.
we simply state that we outweigh, and we also turn because the fact that LGBTQ individuals have basic human rights today was because of the civil rights movement, which was caused by executive orders.
Okay, sure. Even if you do buy that, we still outweigh with the lives, correct?
No, we don't. No, you guys don't, because like our COVID example, like as 10 in the span of 10 months, more than 1 million people have died.
But we've already mentioned that
lasted
Congress
for
passed
6
action
years.
before Trump. We already mentioned that Congress passed action before Trump. You guys haven't refuted to that at
Yeah,
all.
we said in our case that according to CDC 24, CDC reports 60 cases of COVID-19 across Arizona and a bunch of these like cases.
That's not
around the
about
world.
Congress.
And
We're
March
talking about
23,
States
the
like
Trump
it powers
administration
active
declares
first, like
that national emergency and issue have travel ban on non-U.S. citizens.
but that still doesn't account for the fact that Congress acted before Trump.
But the
Okay, so
Congress,
Sure, Trump administration acted, but Congress
what
acted.
was the date when the Congress acted?
Alyssa?
it's either 5th or 6th March. One second.
And your source says March 13th. So either way, it's before.
What?
I think Cross is up.
yeah, crosses over.
Thank you. Oh, would you guys like the card that says it did like 5th or 6th March?
Yeah, we would
Oh, wait,
like the
could you-
source that.
Wait, 5th or 6th March?
Yeah.
What year?
Oh,
2020.
What?
2020.
Oh,
One sec.
so I believe it's my speech. I'll just use our remaining prep time. So my partner spent 25 seconds and I didn't spend any, so we still have 2 minutes and I believe
35 seconds.
yeah 35 seconds.
Yeah, 6th March 2020. I can send the link.
All right. Okay, I'm just looking at the card right now.
Yeah, it's on a table, so I can't copy paste the
I see it.
table. It's like right there. It's the first one.
Okay.
Thank you. Should we start your prep?
Yeah, my time. Wait, let me pull up my timer. Time starts when I mute. Okay, I still have some time left, but I'm already done. So first, little off-time roadmap. So the main core of this argument will dive down to our urgency versus their abuse, and I'll go over their two main responses, go over the entirety of the debate, and I'll prove why an AFAL is needed. Time will start my first word. Let's go to a review. Throughout this debate, they give us two main responses to our arguments. They try to say that urgency doesn't equate to quality, but executive orders allow for quality by solving the short term so Congress can deal with long term solutions. And they state examples like Japanese internment, which we already showed are non-unique, which they did not respond to. And throughout the debate, the opposition creates arguments that we already answered to without creating proper responses to them. Furthermore, before I continue, I would like to mention how our weighing like a laboratory and time frame arguments went uncontested throughout the entire round, meaning they ignore how their impacts are minuscule. Judge, we did respond to their arguments, including the delinker impact, which are uncontested by the way, Judge. And over 1 million deaths in just 10 months and more than 4 years left of COVID significantly outweigh the death of 3 million and also a death of 100,000. Let's go into some weighing. We went on probability because in history, Congress always gridlocks during a crisis and executive orders are what always solved. We proved this through multiple examples. And their abuse of power contention always talks about outlier incidents in democracy at first, despite executive orders for centuries. Examples of these include Truman's desegregation and military emancipation proclamation. And now in time frame, Josh, is the most important part. There will be many times where executive order will be needed. In times of crisis, we need solution within days or hours, not months or years. Like we said, acts like the DREAM Act took way too long. And now for the COVID example, they do not outweigh because in terms of magnitude, the executive order saved lives, while the Congress only slowed down the non-unique and the inevitable downfall of the economy. And furthermore, our acts were set off by a couple of weeks, according to their example, like by a week actually, according to their examples, while we have given a difference of 10 years. Judge, we urge you to prioritize magnitude because it's the most important metric in this debate because we simply cannot ignore severe impacts that clearly outweigh. There are cases or examples that happen and what happened anyways, isolated short-term incidents and outliers. And we were shown that checks and balances prevent these abuses from happening most of the time. And even if you don't buy that, it's a definite fact that only people can only stay in office for 4 years, and the next president can reverse the bad policies as well. And according to a laboratory argument, the good executive orders become the new normal. Like we said, we disproved their arguments and we showed how our impacts outweigh. We talk about urgent crises where minutes literally save lives, 8.5 million jobs, as well as millions of lives during the pandemic, and also the ending of segregation, which is why we vote pro. Sorry, I went over time.
Okay, I'd like to take running prep. I have 1 minute 55 seconds left, so I'll just take running.
1 minute 5, 1 minute 5.
Sorry, 1 minute 5 seconds left. I'll just take running.
Thank you.
I believe your prep time is
Yeah. Sorry. Okay, just give me a second. I'm pulling up my timer. Okay, a quick off-time roadmap. I'll be weighing. I'll be going over the main clashes in this debate, and yeah. Okay, my time starts on my first one. Okay, so Judge, first of all, I'll begin by weighing. Short-term impacts. Up to 5 billion records are collected by NSA without a warrant, which chills journalists like Adam Goldman who say, I don't want to act like a spy, I'm a journalist. Long-term impacts. EO 12333 is a virtual lawless surveillance system with no expiration or congressional oversight, eroding constitutional rights and US global credibility. 10 million cases due to HIV and 15 million cases due to malaria. Magnitude, millions affected. Meta Millions of lives are affected. Meta fined $1.3 billion for transferring data, risking U.S. surveillance, risking 9.4 million jobs in the EU and USA relationships. Probability. Surveillance abuse under EO 12CCC is ongoing and unchecked, empowering unelected agencies to misuse data for political targeting. Okay, then they mentioned checks and balances. Checks and balances that be broken. COVID. We just gave a source and proving that Congress acted before Trump passed an executive order, and okay, partisanship. We win that argument because the Supreme Court that passed an order yesterday. 9.4 million jobs are at risk. They can't risk things like Truman's military segregation and emancipation proclamations. They didn't extend in summary. They've not challenged any of our links, so impacts still stand. They haven't addressed the EO 12 so humanitarian rights concern, free journalism being undermined, and hegemony loss is present. We still outweigh the harms over the benefits. We affect over 100,000 LGBTQ workers, 15 million malaria cases, 10 million HIV cases, and 3 million HIV deaths, which we have no response to. We also outweigh on the 8.4 on their impact. 8.4 million jobs saved as EOs can risk 9.5 million jobs through EU and USA relationships. The main link to lives is COVID, and we broke that. They keep mentioning that we said quality over for Congress, but we didn't say that. Additionally, they try to say that Trump is non-unique because he's an outlier. But if you just change our perspective, our case is not focusing on an outlier, but on how 3 executive orders out of thousands can cause so much harm because they're unchecked and risky.